Hey guys, thanks for stopping by to watch another video here at All I See Is W, where we talk about stocks, Bitcoin, and finance, where the goal is to gain on positive proceeds and lead with an altruistic mindset. In today's video, I'd like to talk about the overall Bitcoin market. We've seen a lot of price action with volatility going on. What's driving down the price of Bitcoin, especially once it just hovered up above the $100,000, where Bitcoin is currently hovering at 94,000, along with talking about MicroStrategy, MSTR, the titan of the Bitcoin companies. Where is MSTR headed? Is MSTR going to retest its prior resistance of 550? I'll go through all of the price action forecast for the year 2025, as well as talk about technical updates on the Bitcoin miners as well. We've seen such an underperformance with the Bitcoin miners, but most of you are wondering, will the miners continue to outperform in the year 2025? So we'll cover all of those details. And now, if you're new to this channel, I would really appreciate you hitting the like, subscribing for more related content to support this small YouTube channel. Let's begin, guys. First off, I wanted to just talk about the technicals of different miners here, as well as cover MicroStrategy. So what we see above here would just be a 6 month just trend chart here of MSTR, which is above here, and we see different lines here in violet. We see RIOT 6 month range, it's up 25%, Mara down 7%, IREN down 28%, CleanSpark 35%, Bitfarms down 40%. However, MicroStrategy from a 6 month trend chart, we see 152%. We did see MicroStrategy go up to about 550% gain sometime in November. But overall, year performance for 2024, MicroStrategy reached like a 400% gain. Let's take a look at a annual performance here. So overall, MSTR ended the year with a 400% gain. At one point, the retest of like $550, that was hovering at like 800% gains. So MSTR was a big workhorse in 2024. I think with this drop off of like 50%, there's been a lot of consolidation here where, investors who believe in MSTR are dollar cost averaging down and also loading the boat here, because I do think that there's upside with MSTR. And we'll talk about the different fundamentals here. But just looking at the miners, we did see out of these five miners, IREN did perform at a positive 63%. However, CleanSpark, Riot, Mara, Bitfarms, we see significant underperformance, at least looking at like Bitfarms, Mara, Riot, CleanSpark. So just going back to just recent percentages here, I mean, just from a 1 month performance, IREN significantly underperformed, 32% drop off, along with CleanSpark drop off. I mean, about a month ago, it reached $18, and it reached a near point of like $10. So some drop off there, as well as Bitfarms and Mara hugely underperforming. However, in the recent month, we see Riot with a, just a net zero here. Let's take a look at a 3 month trend chart here. So while we do see MSTR being the workhorse from a 3 month perspective, we do see some upside with the miners just based on 3 month data here. However, just looking at it through the lens of like the recent performance, year to date, we see some progress here with the miners, along with MSTR having some upside here. But why is it that the last 5 days we've been just seeing, two positive days in the start of the year, and then, following that, we see some, downward trajectory? I think all of this is just attributed to the Bitcoin cycle. I think that just based on technicals alone, if and when Bitcoin breaks through that 200,000, we're talking about Bitcoin bull cycle in the year 2025, there's going to be some huge upside with price of Bitcoin to reach 200K in the year 2025. we have to keep in mind that the Bitcoin halving just happened not too long ago. We haven't even reached a year yet post that halving event. I think that if and when Bitcoin does break that all-time high, reaching 120 and then having upside to 200K, MSTR can very well achieve that 1,000 to 1,200 price target in the year 2025. And with the miners, I mean, especially just looking at their overall like 1 year performance, we see like just big underperformance with these miners just from a 1 year perspective. So you see here Bitfarms, Mara, Riot, CleanSpark hugely underperforming, but I think that with seasonality information that we see with the prior years for the miners, I think because there's underperformance, we can see some MSTR like performance with the miners. And overall, with Bitcoin, I do see some upside as well. So there's potential to really take advantage just to go through an update here, the crypto market today, I mean, how much was liquidated from the volatility that's been happening was 655 million. That's, including the altcoin market as well. But overall, Bitcoin, there's some degree of volatility going on, but I do think that, especially with the inauguration happening, I think there's just volatility prior to the events leading up to that. And some of the technical indicators that we're seeing is just that head and shoulders pattern over the course of the last couple of days of trading with the price of Bitcoin, where it was below 100K, it reached above 100K, and then now back to the mid 95 range. So I think there's a level of fear that is kicking in, but I think with all of the information that's going on around with, the inflows with, ETFs being created. So here, IBIT was created in 2024, and this is an ETF that was created by, a big time financial institution where you see the market value here 100% weighted on Bitcoin. So basically, this ETF is generated by just acquiring Bitcoin with a $54 billion market value. So I think as a hedge, people who have investments in stocks, they're reallocating into different ETFs, such as the iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF. So I think because of this, that really stabilizes and sets that credibility for the Bitcoin commodity. And what does that mean? Price of Bitcoin is just going to go up. I know we do see the short-term volatility going on, but in the long-term perspective, Bitcoin price will continue to go up. I'm forecasting 250K as upside with, more of a conservative level. I've increased my conservative level from like 120,000 now to like 150,000. So there's so much potential with Bitcoin commodity going up. And along with ETFs like IBIT, we have so much upside here, and that's really going to drive up the overall price of these stocks that are heavily correlated with the price of Bitcoin. Now, let's take a look at Bitcoin treasuries here. So, what we're seeing here is just the overall HODL amount for the main companies that hold on to Bitcoin. So, of course, we know MicroStrategy is the leading number one company that has the most amount of Bitcoin. You see here, ranked number two is Mara, which is like 10%, 44,000 Bitcoins on their balance sheet. And, company number three, Riot Platforms, has a total of 17,000, close to 18,000 Bitcoins on their balance sheets where they mine and also buy Bitcoin. I believe CleanSpark is, up at around that time point of 10,000 Bitcoins mined. And with all of the recent news, just with so much upside with Mara announcing their December production data, they actually mined solid numbers, above 800 Bitcoins mined. Last month, they mined, 922 Bitcoins. So some solid numbers there with Riot, mining, more than 500 Bitcoins at around 522 Bitcoins. CleanSpark announcing news that they were able to mine over 650 Bitcoins. So much upside with the increase in the hash rate for these big time HODL Bitcoin miner companies. But why is it that we saw, the price going down? That was what happened across the board. We saw that with MSTR. We saw that with the miners. IREN announced solid information where they mine significant amount of Bitcoin. They increased their hash rate to like 31 exahash, but today it dropped by like 7%. I think, there's just shorts happening right now, but shorts are eventually going to have to cover because, we have the inauguration coming up, and that's really going to drive the increase in the Bitcoin price. Let's take a look at details on the fundamentals here, why I think MicroStrategy has some huge upside here. So they have, close to 500,000 of Bitcoin. Average costs for each of that Bitcoin, and that's also including in the Bitcoins that they recently acquired at a higher cost average. But overall, let's say once Bitcoin breaks through that 120K, every purchase that they've made for Bitcoin, they've nearly 100% gain on each Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So that just drives significant value where there's going to be so much upside. Of course, the Q4 quarterly results are going to be positive. That also will apply with the miners, which is why I believe, there's so much upside, especially with the Q4 data results. But the profit you see here, 51%, I'm just forecasting that it's only going to increase in the long-term course. 2025, we're going to see substantial increase with the profit. But there's so much upside because their cost average is still at a basement low, 62,000. However, the unique thing with the miners is although miners don't necessarily have this type of HODL, companies like Mara, Riot, CleanSpark, IREN, they're paying a fixed cost to mine Bitcoin, even though their HODL count is a lot smaller. But the cost basis per Bitcoin, where they pay for power energy costs is way lower than the average cost of MicroStrategy at 62,000. Now, one of the unique things about the miners is that the miners also have the ability to buy Bitcoin. So we've seen that across the different sectors with Mara doing it first, as well as Riot. We also saw Hut 8 taking advantage of buying Bitcoin, along with micro cap companies that are doing the same. But I think eventually, with the global race towards hodling much more Bitcoin on the balance sheet, especially with, more clear vision from Trump providing the strategic Bitcoin reserve, I think there's going to be a lot more companies that will be applying the MSTR approach of just hodling more Bitcoin. So I think that's going to really drive upside. Also, let's take a look at the top 10 Bitcoin mining countries of 2025. So what we do realize is over the course of 2024, hash rate has increased significantly where North American miners contribute to about 40% of the global hash rate. That's huge because we're eventually going to get, above 50%. And what does that mean? That's really going to add value to the strategic Bitcoin reserve for the United States to be the leading powerhouse when it comes to Bitcoin mining, along with having a big reserve, which will be contributed by big time companies like MSTR. So here we see North America in this, dark brown color. That's more than 25% there. And of course, we're number one, US, when it comes to Bitcoin mining and, cheap energy costs. Russia's number two here. China's number three. So I think game theory is applying across the board here. China has, the second most Bitcoin's current state. So I think there's a race to having hash rate be done within the North American region, and it's going to be interesting with the dynamic chains with, politics in Canada as well. So it'll be interesting to see how we start, increasing the hash rate. But I think for these reasons, along with the inauguration, the Q4 results that will be announced by these miners as well as MSTR, and the heavy inflows into like ETFs that we see, for example, with IBIT, that's really going to drive up the price of these companies that I have here, along with Bitcoin price expected to break through that $200,000 range. So most of you are wondering, you know, where will Bitcoin price be headed? Where will MSTR be headed? And the miners be headed? So for Bitcoin, I'm thinking that, sometime in 2025, we're going to see that top, reaching above that 200K as a potential. And when it comes to MSTR, current price, I think that where it can top off is like 1200 as potential. And companies like the miners, I see that 3 to 5x potential as a minimum. So that just explains so much upside in these, companies because there's so much demand right now for Bitcoin commodity. The commodity of, Bitcoin is going to go up. And what does that mean? Companies like MSTR, the big time miners, are really going to benefit from this. And we know, of course, Donald Trump's going to be entering as a pro administration for Bitcoin. So all of this is really going to be the paradigm shift. And, we can definitely take advantage. I'm taking advantage, buying on the discount on days like these. So I wouldn't be worried. So I hope that this video added value to your overall outlook on how Bitcoin, MSTR, and the miners will perform. Let me know what your comments and questions are, and please make sure to subscribe. Thank you.